It's time for the podcast that has the safe space for the most casual, cold, and dumbest takes on the world of professional wrestling and sports. Open up that fridge and grab that very cold lasagna with your host, me, DylanLasagna. Hello everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Very Cold Lasagna, episode number 7. I'm your host, DylanLasagna, and man, it's been a big week for sports, huh? Last Sunday, January 31st, to end January, we got the Royal Rumble pay-per-view for WWE, and now this week, to begin February, to end the first week of February, we got Super Bowl 55, the 55th annual edition of the big event for the NFL. And now that I've talked about the Royal Rumble, the WWE's kickoff to their playoff season of sorts, now we're gonna get into the NFL's kind of like whole wrap up, their whole culmination of their playoffs, the Super Bowl. But before we get into that, obviously we gotta plug some stuff because we gotta do the plugs. We gotta do the, self-promotion here on the channel, but I digress. But speaking of the Royal Rumble, if you guys missed the recap, predictions, anything in relation to the Royal Rumble in the last week or so, I did a predictions and a recap, so make sure you check it out wherever you can find anything in relation to this podcast. And speaking of the podcast, you can find me on YouTube here at Very Cold Lasagna. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel and turning on that notification bell so you'll be notified of each and every upload, each and every vodcast that goes up on this YouTube channel. And if you like your podcast in an audio format, and I know like some of you like to listen to your podcast or music like on the go, then you can listen to the Very Cold Lasagna podcast on Spotify, Anchor FM, and Apple Podcasts. So you can get your chill thrills on the road. And you can follow me on Twitter at Very Cold Lasagna, and I'm now on Instagram. I just launched an Instagram this week, and I'm also at Very Cold Lasagna on Instagram as well. As we're continuing along building up this new podcast, I'm trying to expand it a bit in regards to like social media, and still fairly new to the game as a filthy casual, but nonetheless, I love to do what I do in this last month, and that's talk about sports, talk about pro wrestling, and just be me, talk about like my weird takes, my weird opinions as a filthy casual on the world of sports and wrestling. So with that out of the way, with that in mind, let's talk some more about sports. Now that we talked about wrestling for a little bit, and I'm surely gonna go talk about it in the next couple of weeks again. Now it's back to football, because this coming Sunday, February 7th, 2021, is once again the big event. It's NFL's version of WrestleMania, I suppose you can call it. And that is the 55th annual Super Bowl 55. Now, whether you like these teams or hate these teams, you can't deny that this is going to be a big money event for the NFL. But I guess it kind of contradictory here, because we're in a pandemic. Like, we're still in the COVID-19 pandemic. I guess it kind of depends. Well, it depends on the fans that are going to be there. Again, 25,000 are going to be there, with 7,000 of them being frontline healthcare workers in attendance. And then you also got the Super Bowl commercials. You got the halftime show with The Weeknd. I think that's going to be a cool one of the cooler halftime shows that they've done in a while, in a while. So that should be exciting, because I actually like The Weeknd. Like, he's one of the only modern artists that's actually good in today's music. So that's just my personal opinion. But going back into the Super Bowl, whether you're a fan of these teams or you're just like, I don't really care, but the NFL, I like the NFL. Or you just don't really care. It's going to be something. It's just going to be something to look out for, or, pique your interest into. So let's get right into it. We've got the defending, reigning, undisputed Super Bowl champions coming into this game. Once again, the AFC champion Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to be marching in, looking to repeat as said Super Bowl champions, going up against the hometown for the first time in history, the first time in Super Bowl history and NFL history to play the Super Bowl on their home turf. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, representing the NFC. So this is a big deal for the city of Tampa to not only host both the Super Bowl and WrestleMania in the same year, but to have your home NFL team play in the Super Bowl on its home stadium, on your home ground. And it's going to be historic. It's definitely historic in its own right to play the Super Bowl in your home stadium, but it's definitely a different thing if you actually go out there and win it. And we're going to definitely cover that in today's episode. So, how did we get here? Like, how did these teams get here? Like, why are these teams here? And who's my pick to win it? Let's get into that right now. So, let's start off with the reigning, defending, undisputed Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. So, as some of you know, as some of you don't know, the Kansas City Chiefs, led by Andy Reid, head coach Andy Reid, and Patrick Mahomes, they won the Super Bowl 54 last year in Miami. So, not that far from Tampa, I'm presuming, against my team, the San Francisco 49ers. And it was their first one in 50 years. So that's like a long time since they won a Super Bowl. And this is the first one for head coach Andy Reid. So this was a big moment for Andy Reid, because he went to a Super Bowl as a head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles when he faced Tom Brady in Super Bowl 35. I think it is the right number. I think it was in like the 2004-05 season, and he lost to Tom Brady when Andy Reid was head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, and Tom Brady was still with the New England Patriots when they were going on that dynasty run, I suppose you could say. Then when the Patriots went back to back. So the Chiefs won their first Super Bowl in 50 years against the 49ers. Patrick Mahomes won MVP because he helped lead the Chiefs to a 10-point comeback victory. I don't want to say too much about the Niners here, but nonetheless, the Chiefs, I didn't pay too much into their offseason, but they helped their running game by drafting Clyde Edwards-Helaire with their draft pick in the first round at 32. And while most people thought that they would repeat and all that, well, they have a big chance to. They went 14-2 in the regular season, and their offense looked really great. They actually looked really good this regular season. Patrick Mahomes played at a really good level, like as usual. Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce played to their strengths and kept up pace with Patrick Mahomes. And the depth and at the running and receiving game were at its deepest. You got that rookie running back they drafted who played really well and helped this Chiefs offense when you had Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and then you added Le'Veon Bell who got released by the Jets. So that was just a big addition for the Chiefs running game. As for the receiving game, you got McCall Hardman, Sammy Watkins, Darrell Williams. So there's a lot of depth. That's like a big bench. I guess you could use that analogy. On the Chiefs offense, the Chiefs defense, on the other hand, it was solid. They were still spotty in a couple of games, but nonetheless, they didn't really like when the Chiefs offense was scoring a lot. The Chiefs defense in a lot of games, they didn't have to do that much, but they were still led by a good core of Frank Clark, Chris Jones on the defensive line, and Tyrann Mathieu, the safety. He held that secondary together, and he led that group. So the Chiefs defense did solid this year, better than years past. That's all I could say about that. So again, the Chiefs went 14-2 in the regular season, and their only real loss came against their division rival, the Las Vegas Raiders, in I think it was week 5. And when they lost against the Raiders in week 5, Patrick Mahomes didn't play like himself, and the Raiders kind of figured it out. But it was just only for 1 week. It was only for like 1 week, and Patrick Mahomes was already back to his regular self, like slinging the ball, like making defenses' ankles get broken. Like nobody could figure out Patrick Mahomes or like his litany of weapons or anything. And then the other loss really came from the LA Chargers, but the Chiefs already had the number 1 seed in the AFC and the first round bye locked up. So the Chargers pretty much got a free win out of Kansas City. So it was what it was. So the Chiefs entered the playoffs again, coming off 1 week of rest. Actually 2, because technically they rested players in that loss to the Chargers in week 17. So in the divisional, they defeat the Cleveland Browns, and it was 22-17. But in that game, Patrick Mahomes went out with a concussion early in the third quarter, but they still managed to hold off the Browns thanks to the heroics of Chad Henne, the backup quarterback. So that was real, Chad Henne, even though he kind of nearly screwed the pooch, Andy Reid gave him some aggressive play calls, and Chad Henne, in the biggest moments, delivered. So the Chiefs advanced to the AFC title game for the third time straight, and they completely destroyed the Buffalo Bills. They pressured and big time sacked Josh Allen, and they pretty much shut down Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, and the non-existent Bills running game, and they completely smoked the Bills secondary. So all in all, the Chiefs had a pretty successful road to the Super Bowl, and their offense and their defense is their balanced play is why they're back in the Super Bowl once more, and their quest to a repeat. The only thing left standing in the way is, the hometown kids, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, led by none other than Thomas Brady. And why is Thomas Brady here? Why did Tommy Brady take his talents to Tampa? Well, my thinking is Tom Brady saw nothing left to do. This is just my opinion. And when in his last season in New England, he had pretty much nobody but Julian Edelman. Remember in 2019, Rob Gronkowski retired, and then obviously we know what he did in WWE. But in case you didn't know what he did in WWE, he won the 24/7 title, which pretty much is you can win the title anytime, any place, wherever it is. And he was kind of scared to jump off a 20-foot balcony in the WWE training facility at WrestleMania, which was also held at the training facility. But anyway, nonetheless, Tom Brady kind of sensed that a rebuild was coming, and he wanted no part of that in New England. So he was like, "Screw you guys, I'm going down south to Tampa, out of the AFC." And he picked Tampa because he saw potential in that team with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Bruce Arians, and whatever they could add to help Tom Brady out and get him another Super Bowl ring. And out went Jameis Winston, and in came Tom Brady. And they also brought in Rob Gronkowski into Tampa Bay as well. They brought him out of retirement. They brought him out of the WWE, thankfully. Yeah, we weren't going to see Gronk compete in the WWE after what we saw at WrestleMania. So going into the regular, in the first matchup against the New Orleans Saints, yeah, it looked pretty rocky. And halfway through the season, they still looked pretty rocky. They were losing matchups they weren't supposed to lose, or they weren't this dominant offense that people were expecting to be. But this was expected. This was honestly expected for this kind of new, I guess you could call it super team offense, because this is Brady's second team in forever. This is pretty rare that it happens for a quarterback or a player that has been on a team for so long. It's only happened to players like Brett Favre or Joe Montana. So Tom Brady being on a new team that's not New England, it was kind of weird. And it was also weird for Brady because he had to adjust to a new offense. Bruce Arians also had to adjust to him, to his playing style. Brady also had to adjust to his receiving core because he didn't have that advantage in New England, especially in his last year. And there were a lot of speed bumps. There were just a lot of speed bumps when it came to the first couple of games for Brady. But after the Kansas City game, that's when the Bucs were fortunate enough to get an easy break, so they can finally pick up some steam, get something going, get some momentum for their playoff run, and get our stride going on offense, and they eventually did. They eventually got their stride going on offense, and they carried that newfound momentum into the playoffs. But the defense, on the other hand, they had two playmakers that, in my opinion, that I see in linebacker Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul. Its secondary was suspect at best because they were giving up points very inconsistently. But nonetheless, they still managed to grab the first wild card spot at the 5 seed, and they played all their games on the road. So they first defeated the NFC East champion Washington football team. Now, granted, everyone expected Tampa Bay to completely blow Washington out of the water. It's oh, it's just Washington. It's just the NFC East. We could take care of it. But no, this Tampa Bay defense that you didn't see in the later rounds, this was a Tampa Bay defense that allowed 23 points to a quarterback that just had one start in his 6-year career. They allowed Taylor Heineke and this Washington team to stay in the game, throughout the entire duration of the wild card round. They allowed the Washington football team to literally hang by a thread until Tom Brady had to save the day for the Bucs defense. So, nonetheless, the Bucs held on to defeat Washington, And then the defense actually had a bounce back performance against their division rival in the 2 seed New Orleans Saints in the divisionals. And they picked off Drew Brees 4 times in what could be Drew Brees' last game ever in the NFL. And that was just rough. That was a rough outing for Drew Brees. But nonetheless, the Bucs picked them off 4 times on 4 very bad throws by Brees, and they scored touchdowns on all of them. On the ensuing possessions. So the defense bounced back big on that game. And then came the challenge of the NFC Championship. How are they gonna pressure Aaron Rodgers? How are they gonna, generate turnovers on one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL? Well, they managed to. They managed to do almost all that. They didn't generate turnovers that much, but Shaq Barrett had a pretty good game, a breakout game, because I think he's a free agent in the offseason. He had a breakout game in the NFC Championship. In the NFC Championship, sacking Aaron Rodgers 4 times. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's either 4, 3, 5 times, what have you. He sacked Aaron Rodgers multiple times, and against a Green Bay offensive line, which yes, it was kind of hampered by the loss of one of their key offensive linemen, but nonetheless, against a Green Bay offensive line that was pretty good, that was really good in the regular season and in the playoffs. And also keep in mind, they limited Aaron Donald in the previous round. They couldn't contain Shaq Barrett in the NFC Championship. So this defense also limited Green Bay to just field goals, despite Tom Brady throwing interceptions in the second half, 3 interceptions, and all Green Bay managed to get on the following offensive possessions of each of them were just 6 points. That's it. So this late season resurgence, on both sides of the ball, is why it's paid off. And now not only is Tampa Bay the second not the second wildcard team, but one of the very few wildcard teams, the first one since the Green Bay Packers, ironically, to be the first wildcard team since the Green Bay Packers to go to the Super Bowl. And not only are they in their first Super Bowl in almost 20 years, since they won it in 2003 when John Gruden was coaching them, but now they get to do it with the historic honor of being the first NFL team in Super Bowl history, in NFL history, to actually legitimately host a Super Bowl, play the Super Bowl in their home stadium. So I bet a lot of these fans that are going to the Super Bowl, a large chunk of them, it's literally a home game for the Bucs. So expect a lot of Bucs fans, obviously. So even though it's technically a neutral site game, but it's a Bucs game. It's going to be a Bucs game. There's going to be Bucs fans, so expect a lot. But some of the big storylines going into this game, obviously, the Bucs are the first team in NFL history to play the Super Bowl in their home stadium. So they're essentially the home team. So the other thing is the Chiefs are looking to win back-to-back, and they're looking to spoil this potentially historic Super Bowl win for Tampa Bay. Because, obviously, there's a lot of historic things. The Chiefs want to go back-to-back. They want to be the first back-to-back Super Bowl team since, Tom Brady's 2003, 2004. Oh, no, 2003, 2005. 2000, whatever. The 2003 and 2004 New England Patriots. There, I said it. I corrected myself. But anyway, and another tidbit, and these two teams faced off in Week 12, where Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs defeated the Bucs 27-24. The Chiefs actually led pretty big throughout this game, but Tom Brady and the Bucs came back late, but they couldn't complete the comeback as they couldn't the secondary couldn't literally stop the offense of the Chiefs late in the game, so that pretty much sealed it. And this will probably be like this is the fifth time that Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady will be facing each other, and this is probably the final time they face each other, because, well, the other 3 times they faced each other, Tom Brady was still in the AFC, and when the first actual big time they faced each other was in the AFC Championship game when I think it was D Ford or Chris Jones went offsides when Brady got intercepted. That pretty much cost the Chiefs a trip to the Super Bowl. But anyway, and now they're technically their series is tied at 2-2 at this point. Now it's time for the tiebreaker. This time it's on football's biggest stage. So let's break down personally my kind of my skill positions for both teams. I think Tampa Bay has a strong running attack with Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, because they're going up against a suspect Chiefs run defense that neither the Browns or the Bills were able to dissect. I feel like the Browns only were able to dissect it with Kareem Hunt, but the Bills were not getting anything done on the run. But Tampa Bay could get it done with Ronald Jones II and Leonard Fournette. That's if the Chiefs defense hasn't already locked it down with the run. Now, the Chiefs, having already been to the Super Bowl last year, they have the very slight edge, because most of the Bucs players haven't been to a Super Bowl, with the exception of Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski with their time with the Patriots, and the one time Antonio Brown went to the Super Bowl with the Pittsburgh Steelers when they lost to the Green Bay Packers in Super Bowl 45. So the Chiefs have the edge in terms of experience, but again, all the experience is thrown out the window when you're playing on a brand new stage, when the teams are complete, in terms of how you got there, why you're here, the here and now. It's a brand new stage. It's the boss battle in Super Bowl 55, in the Super Bowl. So again, for both of these teams, they're kind of head in head, kind of equally matched, in my opinion. You got Patrick Mahomes for the Chiefs. You got a former NFL MVP in 2018, and obviously last year's Super Bowl MVP. You got him returning for his second straight Super Bowl, so he's looking to go back and back and possibly win another Super Bowl MVP. Now, as for Tampa Bay, you got the 43-year-old and 6-time Super Bowl champion Tom Brady, all of which he's won his Super Bowls with the Patriots, and now he's looking to win his 7th Super Bowl, this time to prove Bill Belichick wrong, his head coach from New England, and win it on another team with Bruce Arians, and his freaking 10th Super Bowl appearance. Now, little tidbit here, at least with Tom Brady making his 10th Super Bowl appearance, he doesn't have a losing record like LeBron James when it comes to Super Bowl finals, what have you. Here's a little, I don't like using stats here on this show, but I guess we can use one here on occasionally. Tom Brady is 6-3 in the Super Bowl. His last win came against the Rams two years ago in Super Bowl 53. His last loss also came the previous year against the Philadelphia Eagles. So this is Tom Brady's 10th Super Bowl appearance. And whether he wins or loses, he'll still have a better record in a Super Bowl or finals than LeBron James, because LeBron James still, even though he won the finals in 2020 in the pandemic finals, LeBron still got a losing record. So at the running back position, Chiefs and the Bucs are kind of neck and neck. The Chiefs have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Le'Veon Bell, Damian Williams, and then the Bucs got Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette, and LaShawn McCoy. But I think the Bucs have the edge in terms of the run defense, because if the Chiefs were to go and attack the Bucs on the ground, they could have some success, but not so much. The Bucs, on the other hand, can attack the ground, and they could gain some key yardage, especially on first downs. Now, at the wide receivers position, I think the Chiefs have both the experience and the advantage over the Bucs, because they got one of the fastest receivers in Tyreek Hill, while also having the bench power, bench power, the depth chart at receiver, with McCall Hardman, Byron Pringle, Demarcus Robinson, and if they activate him, I don't know if they activated him yet, from injury. I don't know if Sammy Watkins was injured or something, but I didn't see him in the last 2 games. But Sammy Watkins, if he comes back if he's injured or something. So Chiefs have the experience. And they got one of the fastest receiving cores in the NFL. I mean, no disrespect, because the Bucs got a talented receiving core of their own. They got Mike Evans, one of the top receivers in the NFL. You also got Chris Godwin and an experienced receiver in Antonio Brown. And then with some reserves that are kind of stepping up big for Tom Brady in these playoffs, like Tyler Johnson and Scotty Miller. Especially Scotty Miller with that touchdown late, like at the very end of the first half again in the NFC Championship game. Like Tom Brady got aggressive, and Scotty Miller actually caught the ball for the touchdown, and that was some big stuff right there. But again, Chiefs have the bigger advantage at wide receiver. As for the tight end, the Chiefs have one of the best in the game with Travis Kelce, but the Bucs can counter that with Rob Gronkowski and a honestly resurging Cameron Brate. I forgot what the name who the Bucs lost in the regular season. It was one of their top tight ends, but Cameron Brate has been resurging, and that can be countered against Travis Kelce. So on the defensive side, again, I already mentioned the Chiefs secondary with Tyrann Mathieu, Rashawn Breeland, Daniel Sorensen, and Anthony Hitchens. So they had that Chiefs secondary has had strong success, especially in the 2 games they played in the postseason, and they'll have the edge against Brady in that offense. So as for the Bucs secondary, it remains to be seen. If they can challenge Hill, Kelce, Pringle, Hardman, Robinson, Edwards-Helaire. That's a lot to contain. That's a lot to limit. So that Bucs suspect secondary, the front 4 can try to get after Mahomes, but they're gonna have to try hard, because it's gonna be a long day if they can't try to shut down one or even 2 of those receivers. Now I got some burning questions in regards to both teams, and that's how much confidence should we give the Bucs secondary in limiting any one of the players I just mentioned: Hill, Kelce, Hardman, and Edwards-Helaire, and probably the bench players of this Chiefs offense. And that's a question I'm going to leave up to you guys. What do you guys think about that? Because personally, if my vote of confidence on a scale of 1 to 10, I give it a middle 5, a 5. I think they can do it. It's just the Chiefs offense is so stacked. They are so stacked in this offensive group that I don't know if this secondary can get it done. They've shown glimpses of that in the divisional in the championship game against the Saints and the Packers. But let's remember this: even though you were playing against a quarterback that was pretty much in in the twilight of his career in Drew Brees and Rodgers, who only had Devontae Adams and Marcus Scantling, who Scantling doesn't show up all that often. And so Devontae Adams is Aaron Rodgers' pretty much only receiver. So they're going to have to, the Bucs secondary is pretty much going to have to contain like the entire Chiefs offense, pretty much. So as for the Chiefs secondary, they're going to have to, can they do the same thing with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Cameron Brate, Gronkowski, Antonio Brown, and the suddenly resurging, not suddenly resurging, but suddenly sudden reserves that are kind of breaking out with Tyler Johnson and Scotty Miller. Can they contain all those guys? So it's kind of like I'm kind of expecting a shootout here between the Chiefs offense and whether or not it'll be a battle of which secondary will give up, will either give up or can't keep up. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see. Now, as for either team's front four or front four on the defense, who's gonna generate the most pressure? Will it be the Chiefs, who are led by Frank Clark and Chris Jones, or will it be the Bucs, who I personally, even though Shaq Barrett's more of a linebacker, and so is Jason Pierre-Paul, they still line up on the defensive line, and they did especially Shaq Barrett, he did a lot to help the Bucs get past the Packers. So it's gonna be interesting which front four can generate pressure on either one, because if the Bucs offensive line can't contain the Chiefs front four, then Tom Brady's gonna get sacked and hit all day long. While Mahomes, he hasn't gotten hit that much in the regular season because the opposing defense's front fours haven't gone to him at all. So it's gonna be interesting how the Bucs defensive line responds to Mahomes. So they have to step it up. They got to step it up. And my last burning question is, if Tom Brady doesn't win here, or whether or not he wins here, will this be his last chance at a championship? I mean, you surprisingly got to this point. You got to play a Super Bowl in your home stadium. Is this your last shot? You're 43 years old. You're still playing at a kind of elite level, but in the last few games, your age has started to show. So I'm not trying to say that, the cliff is coming for you like Max Kellerman does. I'm just saying that you've only got so much time left in the NFL. And I'm actually glad that Brady is still able to play at a somewhat good level for his age. I applaud him for that. I'm actually surprised at that. But whether or not he wins or loses this Super Bowl, will this be the last one? His last crack at a Super Bowl? That remains to be seen. If that makes sense for you. If that makes sense. Now the keys to the victory for either one of these teams. We'll start with the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes. He's gonna be able. He needs to attack this very wacky, this very suspect Bucs secondary. So Patrick Mahomes should be able to dissect it all game long, unless we've seen crazier things. The Bucs secondary may have tightened up. So if they've tightened up, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid need to adjust to their game plan. And we've seen how they've responded, and Patrick Mahomes still needs to attack with his variety of weapons, and if it doesn't work, attack with your own running game, Mahomes. Now for the Chiefs front four, you need to pressure Brady into making bad decisions like the Packers did, force him into throwing bad interceptions, and shut down their running game. Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette are not like Kareem Hunt or Josh Allen. Sorry, I was trying to remember the other running back from the Browns. But anyway, the Chiefs secondary, I already mentioned this, but they also have to limit the Bucs receivers because, like with the Chiefs, there's a lot of them, but yeah, they're not as experienced as the Chiefs in this big stage of the game. So the Chiefs secondary have to limit the Bucs receivers from making big plays, and that's my keys to victory for the Chiefs. As for the Bucs, Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul have to have another big game by getting past the Chiefs offensive line. You got to pressure Mahomes, and think big picture, you got to sack him. You got to get him to, you got to get those tackles for loss, especially by sacking Mahomes on defense. So those big sacks will count. Those big sacks will be critical in big moments of the game. So Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul need to have that kind of big game that they had against the Packers a couple weeks ago. As for the offensive line, well, they got to protect Brady at all costs. They have kind of allowed a lot of sacks throughout this year. So protect Brady at all costs, especially against a team that's known to kind of run away with the game. So protect Brady at all costs, so Brady has a lot of time to throw and not make bad decisions. So last but not least, every receiver, whether it's Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, Rob Gronkowski, Cameron Brate, what have you, whichever receiver that's on this team for the Bucs, they need to have the best game of their career by getting open. And if they're open, don't have Butterfingers. Actually, don't eat Butterfinger, please. Like, get open. Don't drop open passes. It's like, secure the football. Don't let the receivers force a fumble out of you. And as long as you do that, if the Bucs do that, they can win this game. They could pull off an upset over the Chiefs, win the Super Bowl at home in front of their fans. But my personal pick for the Super Bowl, I still believe this is going to be a shootout. But we've seen some crazier things, like with Super Bowl 53. You know, that snooze fest, that like slog that we had to sit through. But here, I still think that we can get a shootout. You've got the legend in the making in Patrick Mahomes versus the still debatable GOAT in Tom Brady, who could be in one of the last Super Bowls of his career. And I'm just gonna say Chiefs are gonna win this, like what could be a big shootout by 7, like by just a touchdown. It could. Tom Brady is still gonna play at a high level, and I know his receiver is defense will against a very game Chiefs team that wants to repeat badly, but Tom Brady can't let his age show like it did late in the NFC title game. He can't be forced into throwing bad throws that end up as interceptions, because if they do, Mahomes in that Chiefs offense is going to take advantage of that and turn that into points. They're not Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, where they got so safe that they decided to kick a field goal. No, Andy Reid is not like that anymore. They're going to attack you. They're going to make you pay for your mistakes. So if the Bucs want to win, they need to take advantage. They need to attack on every single play. Otherwise, they're going to get beat up by Mahomes and Chiefs. They're going to get knocked out like sooner than you think. So I think even with what I said, I still think this has the potential of a shootout between the future versus the present, versus the past and present in Mahomes and Brady. So it's going to be an interesting game. It's going to be an interesting game to watch, whether you're a fan of these teams or whether you don't like any of these teams, whether you're a fan of one of these players or whether you just don't care about football at all. But let me know what you think about Super Bowl 55. Who are your picks to win this game? Are you rolling with the Chiefs? Are you rolling with the Bucs? What are you most excited for about this game on Sunday, February 7th, 2021, the 55th annual Super Bowl? Are you excited about the game? Are you excited about about your team, either Chiefs or Bucs? Are you excited about the commercials? Or are you even excited about the Weeknd performing in the halftime show? Or are you excited about possibly something else in this game on Sunday? Or are you just don't care about this game on Sunday? Let me know. Let me know whether you're watching this on YouTube or mention it to me on social media, and I'll be happy to hear it. But anyway, everyone, this is your host of the Very Cold Lasagna podcast, DylanLasagna, signing off, and hopefully we get to recap this Super Bowl once it's all said and done. And man, this was such a weird end to the NFL season, even though it hasn't happened yet, but we'll get there when we get there. And I'm just glad we even got to this point of the NFL with the Super Bowl. But anyway, once we get to the Super Bowl 55, we're going to recap it next week. But anyway, everyone, I am your host, DylanLasagna, for this episode of Very Cold Lasagna podcast. I am signing off. Make sure to follow me on social media at Very Cold Lasagna on both Twitter and Instagram, and then make sure to listen to this show on both Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel for vodcasts and extras, and turn on the notification bell so you'll be notified of both of those, both the vodcast and the extras. And check out the channel because the notification bell sometimes doesn't work. But anyway, everyone, keep your takes on sports and wrestling cold and in the fridge in that lasagna. Until next time, make sure you check out the Super Bowl. And after the Super Bowl, I will see you all next time. Take care, everyone, and enjoy Super Bowl 55.